I'm going to make this chessboard out of maple and walnut, so I'll start by cutting the wood into lengths to make the chess squares. I'll joint the face of the maple to make it flat, and then I'll joint one edge to get it straight. The walnut is too wide for my jointer, so I'll just joint the edge in this case to get a straight edge so I can run it through my saw. Now I will rough cut the board into widths for the squares. The squares are going to be 2.5 inches, so I'm cutting these strips oversize so that I can joint the edge and then cut everything to a consistent size on my table saw. Now I can run these smaller pieces of walnut through the jointer to get one face and one edge straight. And then I can run the pieces through the planer to get the other face flat and parallel to the face that I jointed. The chessboard is going to be double-sided with the top side having an elevated playing field. So I'm going to cut these pieces into 2 strips, with a thicker piece for the elevated portion and a thinner strip for the bottom. Now I'll run everything through the drum sander to remove the sawtooth marks from the bandsaw and to get the pieces to a consistent thickness for the bottom and a consistent but thicker thickness for the top. Now I'll cut the boards to the 2.5 inch width and then they'll be ready to glue up. Next, I'll cut everything to be a little more than 21 inches long. That will give me 20 inches for the 8 squares, plus a little extra to account for the 1/8 inch saw curve each time I make a cut. For this first glue up, I don't have squares yet, so I'm just gluing together all the edges for the top. And then I'll put a piece of plywood on top so that I can clamp around the outside edge to keep it flat. And then I'll do the same for the bottom piece. After the glue has dried, I can run the pieces through the drum sander to remove the excess glue and get the pieces flat. Now I can trim one edge using my crosscut sled to get one straight edge. And now I'll cut each of these pieces into 8 strips of squares. This chessboard has a similar design to the very first chessboard that I made back in 2018. That one was made with solid end grain squares, whereas this is made with thinner face grain squares glued to a plywood substrate. I'll let the glue dry. And now I can flip the board over and glue on the bottom squares. While that's gluing up, I can start working on the walnut frame. The frame will be about 3 inches wide, so I'm cutting these pieces a little oversized. Now I'll run the pieces through the jointer and the planer. With a stop block in place, I will cut each of these to be a little more than 26 inches long. Now I'll cut the pieces to be 3 inches wide. Now that the glue has dried, I'll run both sides of the chessboard through the drum sander to remove the excess glue and get everything flat. Now, in order to get the frame to fit along the edge of the chessboard, I need to be sure that the edges of the board are perfectly straight after the glue up. So I'm trimming off the slightest amount after the glue up to remove the rough edges. Now I'll take those frame pieces and cut a groove to fit over the plywood. In this case, I don't want the groove to be in the center because of the fact that the top side will be elevated, so the groove is closer to the top side of the frame. And then I had to make a second cut to get the groove to be wide enough to fit over the 3/4 inch plywood. Now I'll cut the 45-degree mitered corners. The client wants to have inlaid initials, so I will begin by carving the male portion of the inlay using maple. And now I'll carve the female portion into one of the frame pieces. Now I'll remove the excess maple so that I can glue the male portion into the frame. I'll let the glue cure, and now I can cut the excess off using the bandsaw, and then I'll run it through the drum sander to clean it up. Now it's time to glue the frame onto the board. And I'll leave that clamped overnight. The next step is a little tricky because I'm beveling the bottom of the frame, but it's a large piece to handle, so I have the chessboard clamped to this fixture that fits over my fence to hold the piece vertically. There were some burn marks from the blade, so I'll run it through one more time to help remove some of that. There was still some unevenness, but I'll be able to sand that out. And now with my spline jig, I will cut a slot for a spline in each corner, doing my best to get the slot centered. Now I'll glue in the splines and clamp them in place while the glue cures. And I'll use the bandsaw to carefully cut off the excess part of the spline, and then I will clean up the edges with the sander. As a last step, I'll use the CNC to carve a quotation into the other player's side. And now I will spray on a finish using pre-catalyzed lacquer. So I gotta ask, would you make it?